Hey guys, welcome back to BigRedEDC and welcome to this edition of JB on EDC. Now, it's been a few weeks ago, but it was probably one of the last JB on EDCs I did. I talked about what I look for in traditional slip joints when I'm, checking them out, reviewing them, whatever, doing videos on them. What I really look for. Well, our good friend Dave Burge came back and asked, okay, very cool. What do you look for in modern knives? So that's what we're going to take a look at today. I've got a few laid out here on the table, and we're going to take a look at some of the things when I'm going through and evaluating and checking out knives, what I look for. And you'll notice that when I do this, I'm not really talking about the blades much at all. And there's a reason for that. And I'll tell you exactly why here in just a little bit. So let's take a look at what I look for in modern knives. Now, I have to say this too. Special shout out to Dave for requesting this topic. And if you guys don't know, Dave writes a fantastic, he's Dave-O from El Paso if you're in a live stream and see him in the live stream. But normally in most of my live streams, I have a pinned comment and in that pinned comment is a link to Dave's weekly EDC article. He writes an EDC article for an online newspaper down in Texas. I guess, I don't know if that's really the way to say it, online newspaper, but an online news affiliate. How's that? Down in Texas, and his articles are absolutely fantastic. I usually try to share them on my Facebook, the BigRedEDC Facebook page as well. So if you're ever in a live stream or if you ever check out BigRedEDC, go check out one of Dave's articles. They are fantastic. So all right, let's get to the tabletop and let's talk about some modern knives. All right, so here we go. What do I look for in modern knives? So I've got a few on the table here. I've got a couple more set aside to help me sort of show you what I'm talking about. But, so, first thing, always and forever. No matter how good I think a knife looks, ergonomics has to be number one. The knife has to feel good in hand. And a lot of the things that I am going to talk about when I'm showing you what I look for in modern knives, all comes back to ergonomics. If a knife does not feel good in hand, I think that's just common sense. You're probably not gonna use it as much, and okay, what's the use, right? So for me, and we're definitely gonna cover that. So one of the big things, obviously, fit and finish. That goes into ergos. Now, I'm just gonna use this Romet here as, an object. I always, no matter what the knife is made of, the cover material, blah, 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 I always, when I'm doing a video, I'm always doing this. You can see me, I'm moving my thumbs around. I am feeling, if I feel any hot spot or sharp spots in this case, how well things are chamfered off, which as you can see here, this one is absolutely fantastically chamfered. But one of the biggest things I look for when I'm doing fit and finish, especially in a titanium, aluminum, whatever, especially if it's a frame lock, is this spot right here. And I will always run my finger across there because when, companies do this relief cut like this, sometimes they leave some fairly sharp edges. And when I can run my thumb across there and not feel those sharp edges, and yes, doesn't matter if you're talking, budget like aluminum or, more premium with titanium, it's happened to a lot of them. It just makes a difference. If I don't feel any sharp spots right here, that tells me that this company is taking the extra time to just really look at their knives, how they're finishing their knives, and taking care of anything that might be, sharp, sticky, not necessarily sharp, but sticky. I've had knives with liners You know, everything else has been great on the knife. But, you know, especially like a G10 knife or something. Let's see here. Yeah, of course I didn't really pick a knife. There we go. Here we go. You know, these liners in here. And the liners aren't finished. You know, you can run your... I've had a couple of knives where I could run my hand across like so, and it's just sticky. I had one that it actually like poked me. It almost drew blood. That just... Okay. I mean, how and why did that knife ever made a... Now, could that have been the only one? Maybe. Maybe. The QC, all that other good stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. I get it. You know, that's why I say sample size of one in my videos a lot of time. But that's just what I'm doing. I'm feeling it. I'm just getting a feel for the knife. You know, by the time I do the review, I have carried the knife. I've used the knife. You know, but I just want you guys to see how I am taking a look at a knife. So fit and finish, centering, of course. Any transitions there may be in, you know, from a bolster to a cover like this to the scale. I always look at that, and it's one of the things that I check out. So fit and finish is, and it's usually the first thing I talk about in my videos. So I just go through and just check all of that. Just run my hands all over the knife. Now, another thing that kind of goes into, you know, the fit and finish, what I'm looking at is a pocket clip. And there again, definitely goes back to ergonomics. You know, there's pocket clips that I can feel a little bit that don't bother me. You know, do I know the clip is there? Yeah. Does it bother me? No. I've done a few where, whoo, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Clips just like, no, not at all. And you know what? Before I go too far, this is another spot I check in the fit and finish, especially on a frame lock knife. There again, if that's sticky, pokey, aluminum, titanium, doesn't matter. That's another spot. Made sure I'd get that out there. But yeah, you know, the pocket clip, whether it's a milled clip, whether it's just a steel clip, you know, you guys know that this is probably one of my favorite types of clips. These top-mounted clips like so. This, of course, is a knife from our good friend KC over at Tempest Knives. This top-mounted clip, or, you know, sometimes we see the clips that are mounted on the inside. Now, a clip like that, sometimes you do have to take the knife apart, but if it's reversible, if it's got that spot on both sides. Now, this one, you know, obviously you've got a show side here and a clip side, but both of them have, you know, this one, you could reverse it. Would it look as good? Maybe not. You know, but there again, a clip like this on this Ocaso, it is made to be totally ambidextrous. It's not exactly top mount, but it's basically the same. It's deep carry. Love a deep carry clip. You guys know I like deep carry clips. And sometimes those super deep carries, depending on if the knife is, especially on like aluminum or titanium knives, sometimes if there's super deep carry and they're really buried in your pocket and you go to pull them out, your hand slips on the aluminum. So sometimes that doesn't always work out the best. But this clip, I mean, you can see under there, it can be flipped around. It's inset into the scale. And I honestly wish more companies would go to that type. Either the top mount, this flip mount like this, or the inset mount where it's, you know, it's inset on the inside of the liner, and it can be flopped either way. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, you know, I don't want a clip on this side of my knife, the show side, you know, the pretty side. I get it. Understand that for sure. You know, and on some knives, that's maybe not a good option. But I would love to see that type of clip more often. Now, usually with a clip, with a pocket clip, sometimes I can feel it down here if you've got that. I don't have any that have that wicked, well, there again, I guess we're going back to the Ocaso, you know, the upturn on the clip, the ramp. You know, sometimes those are way too high and it just hits me wrong. It's a hot spot. Okay. This one, not at all. And then back here sometimes. And that all depends on, that is completely relative to my hand size, the size of the knife, as to where and it's going to be for you too. I mean, your hand size, the size of the knife is all going to depend on where that clip hits, whether you're going to feel it, whether you're not. You know, I take these knives to work. I've got a couple of guys that have a little bit larger hands than mine. And I hand it to them, and I was like, okay, if I think it feels great in hand, right? I hand it to them, and I was like, oh, I can feel this clip's kind of poking me. You know, like it pokes me up here a little bit. Well, where it fits into the nice little fat crease in my hand, it might not fit the same way in their hand. So a lot of these things are super, super subjective. Super subjective. And I get that. I totally understand that. That's why, I'm just telling you how I feel, how it feels in my hand. That's all I can do. Now, if I do that and I say, hey, I give this knife to my buddy Johnny at work. He's got a little bit larger hands than I do. You guys know that magic 3.5 inch, that's perfect for me. And we'll definitely get into that. But, his might be 3 3/4. And he's like, hey, this clip's kind of poking me. Okay, that's good to know. And I try to pass that along to you guys when, I'm doing something like that. So pocket clips, big time go into ergonomics. Another thing that goes into ergonomics, grip length. I try to show grip length in my videos. And, and it kind of goes into handle size as well. If you guys know me, that 3 1/4 to 3.5 inch is pretty much perfect. Now the Stray Dog from Finch, I know I said when I did my video on it, it's probably the most comfortable Finch I've ever held. And that's exactly the way I feel about it. Why? Well, it's got that 3 1/4 to 3.5, right? I mean, look, I close my hand, it cradles my hand because it's got that curve. That's another aspect of a handle I like. Where, let's see here, okay, we've got kind of a straight-ish, it's not perfectly straight. It's got a little curve to it. Still feels pretty darn good in hand, don't get me wrong. But if I can get that 3 1/4 to 3.5 inch grip length with a little bit of curve in it. Now this one it's got the swell, the swell. But anyway, it just feels fantastic to me in hand. Now, if you have a larger hand, that might be 4 inch to you. And if it's got that curve, you might be a fan of the curve. You might not be. But that 4 inch point-to-point grip length might be perfect for you. For me, it just happens to be that 3 1/4 to 3.5 inch. My hand just melts into it. That little bit of curve just helps the grip. And it's absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. Now, it's, anyway, just like the way it feels. Now, you guys know, as far as blade shapes go, that's totally aesthetic to me. You guys know I'm a drop point. I like a drop point. I like a sheep's foot. I kind of like those curved, those rounded, Yes, thank you. That's a clip point, but it's got that nice belly. I do like that. It's a drop point. It's not very flashy. Okay, that's what I like, Or again, something like KC's knife. It's a drop point. I like it. It's got a nice forward finger choil. Knives don't always have to have a forward finger choil to me. Larger knives, for me, it's better with a forward finger choil. The larger the knife, I prefer a forward finger choil on it. So, all knives don't have to have them, especially smaller knives. There's really, sometimes a finger choil on a smaller knife helps to get a better grip. Absolutely. But for me, it's the larger the knife, I prefer to see a forward finger choil that I can really get in and use it. And then, there again, it goes back to hand size. So, opening method. You know, I have to say that thumb studs are still probably my favorite type of opening method. It just is. I don't know. You know, do I have anything against flippers? No. Do I have anything against knives that only have holes for opening? No. I'm a thumb stud guy. You know, that's just what it just, I don't know, it just feels natural to me. You know, flippers, sure. And the funny thing about it is, you guys know I am totally a Finch guy. Totally a Finch guy. There's not a Finch knife out there that has thumb studs on it that I've seen. If it is, it's, you know, somebody's put quick studs or something on it. Does that make me not like Finch? No, not at all. It just, flippers do not bother me. You know, the reason I love Finch is just a whole different aspect of, you know, knives. And I like the guys. I like Spencer. I like Steve. I like the stories behind the knives, the inspiration behind the knives. And it's just, that's where my sickness came from. But overall, I would have to say thumb studs. Thumb studs are my favorite. 100%. So, now, another thing that I really, really look for and is totally subjective is detent. The detent on a knife. You know, this stray dog has got a pretty darn good detent for me. Okay, now I could hand this knife to somebody else and they could say, it's too weak. Okay, right on. Hand it to the next guy. That's a little too strong for me. Okay. You know, it's totally subjective. And I can't imagine, you know, somebody saying a detent has to be at a certain, well, for one, I don't know how you get it to that certain point. I don't know if there's a whole lot you can do to measure it, but it's total feel. It is total feel. You know, if it flips open easily enough and doesn't come flying open for no good reason, then it's probably got a strong enough detent. Gives me a good snap, you know, it gives you a good sound and all that other stuff. It's just, the detent is, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, can you tighten it? Yeah, you can make it stronger. You can make it weaker. You can make it more to your preference. A lot of times you can adjust it. So it's completely to your liking. But that is something I definitely look at it. You know, and I can't believe when talking about opening methods, I didn't talk about front flippers. I know I'm kind of going back and forth here, guys. Sorry. When front flippers first came out, I pretty much detested them. For the most part, because you had big old honking flippers on them. And I don't want a freaking, I call it the unicorn horn, in my pocket. I just don't. I just don't. But front flippers have gotten a lot better. They've gotten a lot lower profile, putting the leverage points in the right place where you can just roll it over. And, you know, there's been several front flippers, you know, in recent times that I was like, okay, you know, you're making me a convert. I can start to get into front flippers. But I can guarantee you, if it's a front flipper with thumb studs, I'm probably going to use it thumb studs. If it's a front flipper and it has a, you know, regular flipper on it, I'm probably going to use the regular flipper. If it has a different opening method other than the front flipper, that's probably what I'm going to use. And again, touching on opening methods, you know, a knife like this, and this is a little bit of a different knife because I mean, Andy did this as a button only. For whatever reason, I do not care for button only opening knives. It's just me. It's my quirk, okay? Don't really care for it. I absolutely understand why Andy did the knife the way he did this, with a button only, because to maintain the integrity and the lines of the knife, 100%, I get it. Totally get it. Does that mean that it's going to be one of my favorite knives, the way to open knives? No, not at all. Is it going to leave my collection? Probably not. And I'm pretty sure this is the only model in my collection that is button only. Just because, well, I like RoseCraft knives. I like what RoseCraft does. Of course, Andy and Jolene are fantastic. So this one has stayed in my collection. I just don't care for that. You know, when I do have somebody at work that when I hand him an Axis style, crossbar style lock, that's how he opens it. That's how he opens it. Just like that. And I'm like, you put it in your hand, you got a thumb stud right there. Oh, maybe I'm lazy, you know, because to do this, I actually have to move my thumb and move. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? But my thumb's right there. You know, when I pick up the knife, it's right there. And I just open it. I don't. Of course, that's how I close it, because that's how you're supposed to close it, right? I don't. And the other reason I don't is it wears on your Omega springs. Again, I can say I have never broken an Omega spring. I know several of you have, but that's just me. That's just me. So, let's see. I think, have I hit on everything that I wanted to hit on? You know, I've got opening methods, grip length, pocket clip, fit and finish, you know, especially the relief of a frame lock. That's a big one to me. It just is. It's a huge one to me. Contoured or flat scales. Sure, contoured scales are going to feel a little bit better in hand. They just do. Do flat scales bother me? No, not really. That's pretty much what I came up with for the most part. So, no, doesn't really bother me. Oh, handle materials. Handle materials is a good one. I love micarta. I love micarta. That is probably my favorite handle material. Has to be micarta. Now, I've seen some, you know, and recently I've had some aluminum knives, not necessarily titanium knives, but aluminum knives that have kind of gone back to being a little bit slick. And for a while, it just seemed like, you know, the coatings or whatever on an aluminum knife. Well, here's an aluminum knife. This one isn't bad. This strategy from Ocaso, it's still a little slippery, but I can feel just a minor amount of texture in there that helps. That helps to keep your finger from slipping. The Kershaw, I just did. Oh my God, the Kindred. Really slick. And then there again, it's got that deep carry clip, super deep carry clip. The aluminum is pretty slick on it. So when it's in the pocket and you go to pull it out of your pocket, one, you're putting pressure on the clip down here, you know, when you're pulling it out. So you're putting pressure on, so you're actually helping it stay in your pocket. And then when you go to pull it out, my thumb slips. So you're kind of working against yourself with that one. So that's why, you know, sometimes, you know, those super deep carry clips and the handle materials don't always go together. So, but the biggest thing, and that I started out with is ergonomics. And I think most of what I talked about, not all of it, but most of what I talked about goes back to ergos. You know, jimping. Oh, that's another one. Jimping. You know, if jimping's done right, it's fantastic. Not too sharp, but very aggressive. Not very aggressive, but aggressive to grip your thumb. You know, this I would say, I would put this in the category of decoration more than useful. You know, that's just the way it is. Sometimes jimping, and then you've got jimping on a flipper tab. You know, this just happens to be a front flipper. But there again, you got to feel that. Feel that, see if there's any sharp spots. so on, so forth. So jimping is another one. So, man, now here you go. Here is some excellent jimping. Jimping like that, oh yeah, my thumb's not going anywhere. Especially, you've got the ramp too to help hold you back, but that jimping, to me, this is perfect jimping. Absolutely, it's not too aggressive, but it is aggressive. And it grabs my thumb, and my thumb says, no, no. Well, it's telling my thumb, stay there, you're fine, all's good. So, jimping like this, sort of a little bit more fine jimping, a little bit more aggressive, perfect. Again, totally subjective. Totally subjective. And most of this is 100%. It's going to depend on hand size, knife size, what you like, what you don't like. But that is what I look for when I'm looking at modern knives. So, there you go. Dave, I hope that answered your question. I really appreciate you guys watching today. I've rambled on way too long at this point. So, I will just wish you a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Like, subscribe, leave me that comment. You know I love talking to you. Until next time. Bye-bye.